Hey everybody, what's up? OCD Mikey, Hi-Fi Guy here for another edition of the Mikey Show. And today I wanted to take a second to go over high-end audio for people that really don't understand what it is. Okay, so this is not 90% of my viewers. This is for people that have just maybe stumbled on to this video or have been seeing some crazy hi-fi stuff on YouTube and want to sort of understand what high-end audio really even is. Okay, so high-end audio is just, it's music listening for people that are, how do I put this? It's music listening for people that are luxury buyers. Okay, just like anything, absolutely any hobby you do, you understand there's the high-end gear for that hobby, right? If you're a bicyclist, you know, and I don't know bicycling, but I know Campagnolo were really sweet parts. I don't know which bicycles are really the ones that are in now, but you can bet they're Italian. If you like to take photographs, a Leica, and the Leica lenses, high buck. Okay. If you're a watch person, Patek Philippe, Omega. I'm not even going to claim to know these other things because I don't know these other brands, Chopard, whatever, even Rolex, which I think is probably overrated, but they still hold value. Nonetheless, these are all products that, a Timex tells time just as well as a Rolex or a Chopard or a Breitling or whatever. But there are luxury products for luxury buyers. And that would be high-end audio. High-end audio is just the outcropping of bespoke handmade quality for audio playback, for music playback. When I say high-end audio, it does not mean home theater. Okay. When you walk into a room that someone has all the theater chairs and the big screen and amazing sound all around you, that is not high-end audio. That is home theater. It's a completely different thing. Okay. High-end audio is something that is only two channels, left channel, right channel. So left speaker, right speaker. That's like how everything's recorded. Okay. You get it all recorded, all the different, if it's a band, you have 24 tracks, presumably. We're just going to use examples. And you take all those 24 and you mix them down to a two-channel mix, left and right. And you listen to it on a left and right speaker. When you go to a concert, you're listening to a left channel of stack of stuff and a right stack of gear or PA, speakers. So everything's left and right. It's two-channel. And that is high-end audio. It's just two-channel, left and right. In high-end audio, we still use things that are antiquated, like vacuum tubes. You probably don't even know what vacuum tubes are. Vacuum tubes are like these, they look like light bulbs, okay? And I've got one right here, as a matter of fact. Here's an example of what a vacuum tube is, okay? Total Thomas Edison type shit, right? That's what vacuum tubes are. We still use them in our hi-fi systems. It's absolutely ridiculous. Vacuum tubes are used nowhere else anymore except for hi-fi because there's a certain sound, there's distortion that comes from this type of sound that has a texture to it. And our listening is very attuned to that. So we hear things like texture. We listen for things like three-dimensionality. We listen for instrument layering, for depth of soundstage, for width of soundstage. We listen for tonal density. We listen for realism. We listen for frequency response, which is kind of first grade, but all the highs, lows, mids, all that kind of stuff, like where in the frequency. Our frequency on the bottom end, we hear things as low as 20 hertz and all the way up to 20K, 20,000 hertz. Now, that is supposed to be the range of human hearing. I don't think there is a human maybe there was one like Wunderkind or some weirdo that could hear that high and that you can hear that low. 20 hertz feels like a helicopter's landing. It's like, that's what 20 hertz sounds like. 20,000 is like, it's like, you don't hear it. I probably hear it at 12,000 if I'm lucky. Okay. Most of you, I mean, if you're a super hearing freak and you have in perfect ears, you protected them your whole life, maybe you can hear to 15 or something like that, 16, but nobody hears to 20, but they still consider 20 to 20 our range of hearing. So we listen for frequency response. From the low side to the high side, is it balanced, or are there peaks in some places and valleys in other places, suckouts? So we listen for even frequency response. We listen for a lot of weird stuff. And coincidentally, we do lots of weird stuff to tune all that stuff that I just described. That line, if you can imagine the frequency response, here's 0, here's +5, here's -5. And, you know, we have a frequency line that we listen. Everybody's room has a different curve. And there's higher in some points, which means it's louder at that frequency. So like a drum kick, but is like 100, 200 hertz, somewhere in there. And so if you have a big peak there, when the drums hit, but it's going to really be loud. If you have a dip there, you're going to barely hear that drum kick. So you want to get it kind of balanced more or less within that line so that everything sounds balanced. And we go to great lengths to balance that line of sound in our rooms. We hear the furniture. I have a t-shirt that I made that says true audiophiles hear the furniture. Only a real audiophile, not real is kind of a stupid name. Only a dorky ass audiophile like me would understand that statement. True audiophiles hear the furniture. That means, and if you know what it means, you're going to come up and start talking audio to me. So it's one of those shirts that's kind of under the radar. But when you say that statement, true audiophiles hear the furniture, you understand that you never put a coffee table between you and the speakers. You never put furniture in the room or things in between you and the speakers. You need to have a clean line of sight to the speakers. You don't want any reflections. We're very particular about the furniture, how the room is designed. If we're making that room for listening, it has a completely different design than if the room is a living room or used for other things and we add an audio system to it, because then we have to work around the furniture. And really, we're probably not going to put too much into it. And if people are wondering, I can tell you, my suggestion is, if you can't make a listening room, don't go crazy with your audio system. Unless you have the means to just buy things like that and you just want to fill your room with luxurious products, that's totally fine. Go ahead and spend $100,000 on your living room and put an audio system in there where you won't really reap the rewards of that $100,000 rig as if you put it in a dedicated listening room. So we have dedicated listening rooms. I have a 20-foot by 22 roughly foot with a horn loaded ceiling. The ceiling is at a slant. The corners are not 90 degrees. We would never have a square room for an audio system. That's the last thing you want, is a square room, like say 12 by 12 or 18 by 18 with 90-degree angles in the corners and a flat ceiling at 8 feet. That is absolutely the worst possible room you could put an audio system in. So when I built out mine is a carport. I closed in the carport on this house and built in walls, and I made this. The ceiling was already at a slope. I didn't fix that. I left it at a slope because I wanted it that way. My roof line is at that slope. And then the corners, I furred out the corners so there are no hard 90s in the corner. My corners are like this, okay? And that keeps reflections from echoing around the room. These are all things that we do. The windows in my room are covered. I took 2x4s and made a frame that fits perfectly around the window, fits right around the window molding, so you can push it on there and it slides down because I wrapped it with canvas fabric. And then inside there, we put some support slats, and you put rock wool, and you put some mass loaded vinyl on the front to take up the bass hits. And and you put those over the windows, push them on there, and then it keeps any outside. I don't hear cars driving by. There's no vibration or resonance from the windows that happens because I have my windows covered. There's 2 windows in that room, and I treated those windows by covering them up, in the manner that I just described. So these are things that make high-end audio. to just go out and go to Best Buy or to Magnolia, if you're lucky enough to have a Magnolia, and you just go buy, I don't know, what are those midstream brands? NAD, or what's the other ones? I don't even remember what they are, because NAD, and I don't even remember that sector. There's a sector right in the middle that people would consider high-end audio. People that are used to buying cheap stuff at Best Buy, like Sony stuff or whatever, for audio, and then they think high-end is NAD or Marantz or Denon, or and there's those other brands, man, and they're right in that spot that are above the Japanese brands. Man, and I'm totally drawing a blank. Someone asked me, anyways, I'm not gonna remember. But so that's not high end. Okay, that's mainstream hi-fi, we would call it. That's for people that really kind of give a little bit of a shit about how the hi-fi sounds, but they're not committed, audiophiles, like, here's the handcuffs, I'm a slave to the whole, to the neuroses, because this is really a neuroses, just like any gear fetish. So you could say high-end audio, really part of it is a gear fetish. We have a fetish for gear, for really cool stuff, cool vacuum tube stuff that's just got cool looking tubes and meters and all this total geeky stuff, right? But we love that kind of thing because we're gear freaks. Most people that are into hi-fi very commonly are into cameras and photography. They're into cars, vehicles, and car detailing. They are into, they'll be into motorcycling or motorcycles, maybe camping or hiking, guns, very common to be into hi-fi and to be into beautiful handcrafted 1911 pistols and other things like that. It's just a gear thing, man. We like techie gear stuff. And then within that realm, it's all like, where do you buy? And usually it relates to your means or your income or your desire, really, because means and income and desire, it's not really about income. Let's look at Harley riders, mainly blue collar guys. Okay. I'm just saying, in history, I'm going to generalize totally. So just understand I'm generalizing. Generally speaking, you're going to find a welder, right? A guy or a blue collar worker, a laborer guy who's going to have a Harley. That Harley is $28,000, $30,000. It's disproportionate with their income potentially. But it doesn't matter. They still have a Harley because they're super passionate about the ride and the feel. And nothing has that visceral feel of a Harley. You can argue there's much better motorcycles out there, because there absolutely is. But nothing has the feel of a Harley. So you're going to buy something antiquated in many ways, not totally, but an old steel, just, bar steel frame, and just, it's not, yeah, you can argue there's some advanced electronics and things on Harleys now. But generally speaking, you're going to buy an old thing because it's cool and it feels great, just like buying an old amplifier. We will spend inordinate amounts on old ass technology like vacuum tube amplifiers. You're like, dude, that's like Thomas Edison 1935 stuff. That's right. But people pay $30,000, $40,000 for tube amplifiers because they're very unique. And these things are hand built. So just like if we look at weapons, right? You can look at, and we look at a handgun, let's say, okay? You can buy the Glock, okay? To me, would never buy a Glock in a million years. It's probably the most reliable, maybe one of the best, people could argue, handguns for service, okay? If you're a cop, if you're using it every day and you're actually discharging your weapon. A Glock, if you're renting, you're at the range, good rental gun is probably a Glock, I would never want it. It's stamped out, it's high volume, leaves no exotic, it's got nothing exotic about it, nothing that turns me on about its design. Now you go look at a Nighthawk. Look at a Nighthawk 1911. Look at a Nighthawk 357 Magnum. That is art, okay? It's a freaking sculpture of a piece of weaponry that you can use to go to the range with. You can use it, but it is absolutely in every respect handcrafted, hand polished. One artisan makes that thing from the beginning all the way to the end. It does not change hands like Glock and other things. Anything goes on that is manufactured in quantity goes on a assembly line, and you stamp it out, and one person puts the handles on, it moves down the assembly line, the next guy puts the barrel on, and so forth, just like assembling a car, right? Somebody puts the wheels on, somebody drops the engine in, blah blah blah. That's production line stuff. That is a different product typically than comes out of a handcrafted piece where one guy makes the whole thing all the way front to back. So we're talking about two different things, and you would never compare a Glock to a Nighthawk. Everybody knows they're incomparable. You don't compare them. They're two different things. There were two different goals for producing each one of those things. It's the same with hi-fi. There's two different goals. If you make a Denon or a Marantz or a NAD, that's a production piece with the production line. Now, if you go to something like a D'Agostino or a Boulder or a Nat Audio vacuum tubes or Jeff Rowland, for instance, Viola Labs, these are handmade pieces that are handmade, that are made in United States. In the case of Nat, it's made in Serbia. But the bottom line is these are handmade pieces. There's something with they have a different goal than an NAD piece, which is just, volume. So they can send 10 to every Best Buy, so they can send 20 to every Best Buy. And we can go even into finer detail, and we can say anything that is made in volume or that is designed to be made in volume has design elements in it that are made for ease of assembly. Okay. Ease of assembly is something that is worked into that. When you make a handcrafted bespoke piece, it's nowhere close to ease of assembly. It is a pain in the ass to assemble because you've got one person that's going to take 2 weeks longer, whatever, to make, maybe 2 months to make one piece. It's a different goal. Okay. But we can say anything that is designed for high volume is going to have to use design practice for assembly, what should we say, production assembly or volume quantity assembly. And furthermore, we can only get homogenized commercial grade parts for high volume assemblies. We can't buy the hand wound beeswax and silver capacitors that are, $50 a piece or whatever. We're not going to use those in a high quantity type assembly for a couple of reasons. First of all, there's not enough to buy. We can't buy 10,000 of those silver wound beeswax caps. We just can't get them in the quantity. So the only thing we can get 100,000 at a time is cheap stuff made overseas. That's production, where they make 1 million capacitors at a time. Okay, that's the only parts that are going to be able to go into it. So there's many different things, and the design, how it's designed, there's different goals in mind. So to say, which I hear people sometimes say, oh, I could find an amplifier for $1,000 that's going to be just as good as that $10,000, that $20,000 amplifier. Bullshit. Okay, you can not. Okay, in your unexperienced mind, you believe it's the same thing. In your lack of experience, you think they look the same, therefore they are the same. You're the same kind of person that looks at a Corvette and thinks it's just as fast as a Ferrari. And look, it may be just as fast. It's the same thing with the Rolex. Tells the same time, or the Timex tells the same as the Rolex. Corvette may rip around the track the same speed as the Ferrari, but the Ferrari is a handcrafted piece of Italian art. A Corvette looks like a wet dream from a teenager with ADD. Talking about the C8. Okay, I don't like the C8. I grew up with Corvettes in my house when I was little. I learned to drive stick shift on a 69 Stingray with a 350 and a 4-speed. And Corvette to me is not angular, Godzilla movie, which is what the C8 looks like. Yeah, I'm sure it's badass. Yeah, I'm sure it's a bunch of technology, but it lost every bit of tradition to me. And now it looks like some Godzilla movie when Corvettes are long and flowy. They're not short and choppy mid-engine things. That's just not a Corvette. It's like a Viper, man. A Viper is the same thing. It's a front engine car. How are you going to just change it? Okay, I'm derailed. But the bottom line is it's not the same thing. A Ferrari, even if we look at a California, which is the cheap Ferrari, okay, we look at a California for 100 grand and a Corvette for 100 grand. A new Corvette. I'd rather have a used, an older Ferrari. There's so much more style. Yeah, it's going to cost way more. Yes, it's less reliable, all that stuff. But it's about your personal preference and what you like, okay? I like Italian handmade things. I drive a Ducati, okay? A Super Tenere. I have a Ducati Multistrada S. I could have a Yamaha Super Tenere, Do I want a Yamaha Super Tenere? Hell no, I'd rather not ride a motorcycle. Yeah, I probably would still ride one. That's all I had to ride it, probably because I love motorcycling. But I'm not going to ever pick one. I don't care if it's half price. I don't care if the Super Tenere is $8 grand and the Ducati's 18. I'm going to spend 18. That's all there is to it. Okay, maybe I still even can't afford it, but I'm going to get 2 jobs. I'm going to moonlight or whatever I need to do to afford that. So to get into like why people buying all this stuff and question it, and think maybe you can't, you can recreate it for the same amount or for a lot less, you just simply can't. Okay, they're 2 different things. You can't recreate it. People talk about, oh, well, Chinese stuff is such a good value. Yeah, but there's no pride of ownership, man. You have that thing in there and you're constantly saying, yeah, I know it sounds good for Chinese, doesn't it? Yeah, I only got it for $1,000. And you're talking about money and how little it costs. And dude, is that something to be stoked for? Not in my world. In my world, we don't even talk about the money. Okay. It's not something you talk about. You just talk about the product and how it stands on its own merits. It doesn't matter about what it costs. It matters about what was created. The money, it's not a thing. Okay. And I'm not saying it's like that I'm so wealthy I can afford anything, because I absolutely am not. What I'm saying is the monetary thing is completely secondary, because if it's something that I really love and I want, I'll figure out a way to get it. However, I have to do it. Some things obviously out of my range. A $500 million yacht like Jeff Bezos, I don't even want that thing. Okay. But I digress. So high-end audio is something that is a passion. It is something that is in someone's passion, in their blood. Is it a gear fetish? Yeah, probably. It's a fetish for art. I love art, okay? I love creations of art that are also functional sculpture. So my hi-fi rig, completely based on sonic. First, it must be sonic first and look is second. So I throw the dice, man. And if it looks good after I nail the sonic, fire it up. Because if it looks ugly, I'm still using it, because sonic is the first thing that I want. Okay. So it's just, this is the high-end audio. The high-end audio is a group of enthusiasts that really, if you want me to put hard lines on it and you want me to give you numbers, I'd say, if the whole system is under, if it's 15,000 or below, it's not high end. Okay. For the whole system. I'm talking about speakers, cables, DAC, everything, streamer, the whole 9 yards. If everything is below 15 grand, it's not the high end. Okay. It doesn't mean it's not good. It does not mean I don't like it. I love some of those inexpensive systems, and I'm about ready to bring one to you and show you how to truly kick ass for under 25 grand. But I would say, the high end is $25,000. And look, let me explain a little bit more for those that don't know. In the high end, there are, okay, so if we go to the exotics, I'll call them, okay, just like Ferrari, Lambo, and all that stuff. The exotics in the high end are $250,000 amplifiers. There are several out there. There's definitely, I know of a 250 Dan D'Agostino. I know of $160,000, and these are stereo amps. $160,000 one from Boulder. Okay. And I won't go into my opinion on that stuff because I do have a pretty strong opinion on that stuff. But there's nothing wrong with people, if they have the means and they want to just throw it out the window at that kind of stuff to have a beautiful spectacle of audio that really doesn't sound the part, then hey, buy those brands, okay? I'm not going to tell you my feeling about it, right? And okay, there's $1 million speakers. I know of Karma has $1 million pair of speakers. Magico has a $750,000 pair of speakers. So $100,000 speakers are absolutely, let's say, $60,000 pair of speakers. Absolutely, totally kosher in terms of cost. People don't balk at 60 grand for a pair of speakers because 60K is like right in the high end sweet spot. Okay, for a pair of speakers. 25,000 is right in the sweet spot for a converter, a digital analog converter. 20 grand, right in the sweet spot for a preamp. I'd say 50,000, right in the sweet spot for amplifiers, anything 50 or below. But I wouldn't really, I won't talk about the cheap stuff. So those are in the sweet spot. Those are very realistic numbers. I know it's hard to believe from watching YouTube, which is probably mostly younger people, but I have a list of clients more than you can imagine that have $100,000 systems or higher. And you just don't know it. You wouldn't see it. You wouldn't know these people. Most of them are guys that are retired and have made their dough, but I've got guys that are in their 30s that have 100,000. You saw one of my video the other day in their 30s and 40s that have, I've got a guy in Texas, a young guy, Jason, what's up? I can say your name. I'm not saying your last name. The guy has a racing Porsche. He races a 911, man. He takes it to the track. And I think he's in his 40s. He's a father of 2 kids. And, his rig is approaching. It's not as much as his car and his cost to go racing. But again, everybody has their own thing. I got another guy, Don, on the East Coast, and he's got watches, man. And his system's pretty good. It's coming up. I think he's probably got like a $50,000, $60,000 rig, but he's got watches that are 20 grand. So everybody has their own thing. If I spent time with you to get to know you a little bit, I could ask a couple questions. I'd find out what you spend your money on. Typical things that people spend money on that you would say, well, they don't have, guys that don't understand the think, oh, $5,000 speaker is so expensive, or $50,000 speaker. I can't imagine it. Well, do you collect sports memorabilia? Do you collect baseball cards? Do you have a baseball card worth $1,000? If you have a baseball card worth $1,000, I think that's freaking ridiculous. Okay. I would never in a million years spend $1,000 on a useless piece of paper with some colored ink on it just because it's got some freaking baseball guy on it. That is absolutely crazy to me. But I would spend 20 grand on an audio system or on speakers or on DAC or whatever in an instant. I would spend 20 grand on a motorcycle like that. Okay. But would I buy a watch for 20 grand? Not in a million years, dude. Not in a million years. It's useless to me. What does it do? It just looks cool. And I'm virtue signaling to other people that I'm sophisticated. Okay, I get that it's super cool craftsmanship. Like they're making stuff in the miniature and it's automatic, super wickedly cool. But I'll look at your watch. You can take it off and I'll look at it and turn it and play around with it. I've got an auto here that I spent $2,500 on. It's Swiss made. It's an Abel. This is all I need, man. I can see all the little, can you see the automatic in the back there? Can't tell if it's, that's all I need. That's got the cool shit on back. I can see the little thing turning around and all that. That's enough for me, man. This is enough for me. And it didn't cost an arm and a leg. And I can put that on and then be sophisticated for, however long I'm wearing it or whatever. So everybody has their own thing. Collectibles is a name. Do you do scratch offs? Do you go to do you buy lottery tickets? Freaking waste of money, in my opinion. Absolute retardation. I have seen friends sit there with scratch offs. They go to the bar, they sit at the bar. This is like a Midwestern thing. And they sit and they buy these scratch off things. They get these little cards. I don't know how even much they spend on them. Maybe they spend $1, maybe they spend $10, but they get little cards, you know, they're paper, and they scratch off this shit, and they sit there and scratch it up. And they scratch off. And if they get 3 matching, it's gambling. Okay. Gambling is retarded to me. Total waste of money. Gambling. Like you're just throwing money away. You're giving money to the mob and you're trying to hope that you're going to win. Okay. And maybe you might win, but do you think it's stacked in the mob's favor? Probably. What are the mob created Las Vegas? What are the odds that it's stacked for them to roll you? It's probably stacked pretty good. Are they going to let a guy win here and there so that you're under the ether? Absolutely. So that's what absolute retardation. I would not spend money on a lottery ticket. I would not spend money on a scratch off or a play the game thing. And I know there's people out there. What's crazy is the people with the lowest money, people that are on welfare, buy the scratch off tickets and throw their money away. Well, I guess they got it for free, so maybe they don't care about the value of it, but who knows? That's another conversation. But the bottom line is there are other ridiculous things. If you buy a bottled water, and I got in this, you buy a bottle. I don't hear anybody complaining about water being $2 a bottle for a liter. Okay. If you do the math, that's $9 per gallon. So y'all are paying, and anybody will do that, and they won't complain about spending $2 or $9 per gallon for freaking water that they pull out of the ground for free and run it through a filter and put a cap on it and put it in the store. That's ridiculousness. But people have no problem paying that. So there's no different with the high end. Oh, $50,000 speakers. But do you know what experience those $50,000 speakers give to me? Do you understand the listening experience that I have? It's religious level. It's like me going to church when I sit in there and I listen to music. It heals me. It heals my heart. It takes away the stress from this ridiculous world that we live in right now. It makes me feel like it's going to be all right, man. I've got music, man, and it soothes me, and it soothes the guests that I have over. And I can have 4, 5, 6, 8 people over. We can all listen together, and it is an experience that we share together. Tell me how many experiences you share with the group right now. Probably not many, okay? That, I won't go into another conspiracy theory, but I think that's by design to separate us all. Nonetheless, I dig things where people get together. Okay, those are the type of things I like. I like events where we get together. We get together to watch music at a live show. We get together to listen to music. So I invite guests over, and because we stream and we don't play vinyl, where one guy's in control. I guess you could keep changing people and everybody brings their own records, but what a mess. So everybody has their cell phone. We just keep adding to the playlist, and then it's like, guess who put that song on? And you hear somebody else's song, reminds you of another cool song, and then you put that on, or you can just throw them a curveball. You can troll and just give them the Brady Bunch or something like that, just to mess with them. But it's fun. It's group involved. Everybody's involved. Everybody's adding music to the blind playlist. So it's a lot of fun in that regard, and do your other things, does your watch bring you together in a group thing where everybody enjoys your watch? And it's a group effort where everybody gets the same enjoyment out of it? Does your baseball card draw people together where you all get the same enjoyment? Maybe at a show, okay, but not typically. Okay, this is in my house, my audio rig. It happens every day. I bring people together, and then I don't if I don't want to. But anyways, that is high-end audio. This is something that is a passion. It is something that where people buy the gear and we celebrate music. It's all about music. Some people get bogged down in the gear. That's not Mikey, okay? It's not about the damn gear. The gear is the tool to play the music, but it takes high-end gear to make the realism, and the realism, I'll put it in one word. It takes high-end gear to make the realism hit like real life. For you to be engaged into that level of meditative state, music mind state, whatever you want to call it. But it's like, going to see a yogi master. Okay. If I sit and I try and meditate on my own, okay, it's going to take me a long ass time. I haven't practiced it. Right. So, and I don't have the consecrated space and all this stuff to bring me into meditation quicker. So it'll take me quite a bit. It might take me, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 3 days to reach the alpha brainwave state or whatever it is that the yogi master's in. Now, if a yogi master comes and sits with me and he leads me on a guided meditation, he can bring me into meditation way faster. Okay. He can bring me into meditation in like minutes. Okay. That's the difference between high-end audio and just the regular old stuff. High-end audio is going to bring you into the realism and the musical experience much quicker, much more efficiently, much more complete than if I just do it on my own and have regular stuff. It's not going to be the same musical experience unless you are completely oblivious. And you know, it's really truly about the bottom line is it's about the damn music. And if I have an AM radio and I'm on a desert island, that AM radio is going to be like $1 million audio system to me, right? It's not even going to matter. I'm going to be hearing the music, which is the important part. So, but just like anything, there's Starbucks coffee and there's a hand pulled shot that you do from beans you've roasted, where you know what you're doing, you weigh everything out, you got the temp, you've got the pressure, you've got everything down, and you've never had coffee like that. Okay. So I know it's getting a little long-winded, but I wanted to go over that just to sort of explain this craziness. And it is very much a neuroses. People need to look out for the addiction part of hi-fi, because addiction is alive and well in hi-fi. I'm not kidding you. It is a neurotic thing to never be satisfied with what you have. To always be selling and always changing your gear is a neuroses. It is a person that can never be satisfied. If you are happy in that tailspin, if you are happy, then hey, all the power to you. But I've never seen somebody that's happy in addiction. They just don't go together. So there is neuroses in this. And I try and teach people how to be aware and to stay away from that, because this is about fun for all of us. But I just wanted to take a little minute or two to try and shed a little light for those that don't really understand hi-fi and what we're all about, and just think we're crazy ass rich people spending money or whatever. It's not that way, man, because then you'd say the same thing about a Hell's Angel, crazy ass rich guy because he rides a $30,000 Harley, you know. But you know, so let's take it into context. Let's be real about this stuff. We're passionate people. We enjoy artwork. We enjoy handmade bespoke items. So we buy hi-fi, just like we buy all the other stuff in our life. Anything, our clothing, our pens, our shoes, our freaking cameras, our guns, or whatever, you know, whatever it is, our jewelry. I don't have my chain on, you know, I buy 1,000. These freaking glasses are Oliver Peoples, you know, they're $1,000. Why? Because I want them to last forever. Can I tell a difference when I look through them? Probably not when I look through them, but can I tell a difference when if I were to show you these 3 pins that hold the arm on? Okay, if you have polycarbonate glasses or whatever this shit is, plastic, and you don't have those 3 pins there, you have a weak arm. Okay, if you don't have these pins up here holding the face on, okay, it's much weaker. That means they've screwed in or they've melted into the plastic that can pull off. Well, these are never going to rip off, bro, because they've got pins in there. Okay, look at and I don't know if you can get a good view of that, but this hinge is way stronger. And then these are 2 metal surfaces that are going to join right there. So is it worth $1,000? To me, yeah, because I don't need to replace these, you know? So the things I buy in my life are the same as the things that my clients buy. And so if you, it has to do with means. You buy the best you can, but look, don't get upset if you don't have the means, if you can't afford, or you don't want to afford. I should say that's it. Because there's people that don't want to afford $1,000 glasses, that they absolutely drink $1,000 worth of alcohol in a month. Okay. Hopefully not a week. I don't drink alcohol. Okay. So I save a lot of money. I can put my money into my stereo stuff because I don't drink alcohol. I don't buy drugs. I don't even use drugs. I don't have medical bills because I take care of myself. I don't have kids. These are all decisions. Okay. I decided not to have kids because I'd rather have a Ducati. Okay. So it's all just how you work things. So to really take things into context about high end and what it's all about. And don't misunderstand it, because I think a lot of people misunderstand. Look at my shirt. Believe nothing. This is a Buddha shirt. Believe nothing. This is what a friend made. And that's this world today, man. It's crazy. But anyways, so that gives you a little insight on hi-fi and the high-end audio. Hope that helped. See you.